Hello, everybody. Hi, it's me again. I'm now joined by a panel of lovely ladies who will be talking all about barriers to success and how we can overcome these to make lasting changes. I just want to give a quick apology for being a bit late. We've had some technical difficulties, but fingers crossed it'll be all okay. Just another reminder, emojis down at the bottom, use them all throughout this session. Any comments in the tab to your right. And then Q&A tab is also there. So if you have any questions, we'll come to questions at the end. So I'm going to pass over to Laurian now. So thank you.
Thanks, Kate, and hi everyone. It's so lovely to be here. It's the first time that Global Women in PR is taking part in this event, so it's great to be part of it rather than a watcher this year. But I've heard and seen on Twitter that it's going really well, so thank you to everyone at commsHERO for having us today. So Global Women in PR is a membership organisation of national networking groups whose members come from agencies, in-house and independent. Plus, we have global individual members. And I am joined by a fantastic panel of women who have either played a part in one of their countries' networking groups that are affiliated or an official member of Global Women in PR, or women who are supporting the challenge that some of us face and celebrating those successes. So I am Laurian Hubbard and I am the Head of Engagement at Welsh Parliament, and I'm also the co-president of Women in PR in Wales, which is one of the first groups to launch outside of the main Women in PR UK group here in the UK. And I'm also joined today by Sue Hardwick, who is the co-founder of Global Women in PR. And it's great to have Sue with us today. We're going to hear from her shortly to take us through some really important results over some surveys that have been conducted during the pandemic and part of the annual global index that Global Women in PR produces every year. We're also joined with Alice Weightman, who is from Hanson Research and is going to give us that all-important business perspective on how businesses are indeed looking to overcome and challenge some of these barriers, and we'll hear from her shortly as well. I'm also delighted that we are joined by Anna Maria from Romania, the Women in PR Romania group, which is fantastic to have her on with us today. She's the president of Global Women in PR for Romania and a founder and CEO of Brain for Strategy. And last but no means least, really excited to have Nicky with us today as well, who is joining us from the PR Network. She's the co-CEO and co-founder and was an instrumental part to Women in PR UK over the recent years, and we'll hear from her shortly as well. But to kick us off, we are going to hear from Sue. And Sue, over to you to take it away to give us those all-important results.
Okay, over the past 3 years, we decided to establish a research based on being able to measure the changes to the situation of women in our industry. And we have run this, what we call the annual index, over the last 3 years. We work together with Opinium, who are a major strategic and insight agency, and you'll have seen their name in many newspaper columns as they do a huge amount of research. So we started 3 years ago, and we looked at the position of women in the boardroom, because in order to see what the challenges lay ahead, we needed to understand a little more what perhaps prevented more women taking on senior roles. As many of you know, our industry is an industry populated by women, and in fact, it's 60 to 65% women and 35% men. But when it comes to the boardroom, the figures are in complete reverse, which in this day and age really shouldn't be the case. However, rather than just amplifying what it is as a status quo, we wanted to understand a little more as to why we are losing women at the senior level, why we're not taking on more women into senior roles, and why they are leaving the industry rather than going forward and looking at other areas. So we asked a number of questions to try and find out what were the barriers to taking on these roles, and then being able to have that information be able to look at solutions to this, because we need to find a way to make a better balance, not for any other reason than it makes good business sense. There have been a number of reports, McKinsey perhaps leading on those, which clearly demonstrates that companies that have a balanced boardroom are more profitable. So there's a very strong business argument for changing the landscape and making the balance better. When we looked at looking at the statistics, is she looking to the right to make sure I give you the right figures that we had? We surveyed the global industry in 2020, which is our last major report that we have all the information from, and a staggering 93% of women said their working situation, unsurprisingly, had changed as a result of the pandemic. There were more than 80% of women over the last 3 years who've said more needs to be done to make changes. So we looked at and asked a number of questions to try and find out what were the major reasons for preventing progress. We've just literally closed our survey for 2021, and I've got some of the headline findings, which I'll share with you. The major report from this year will be made available in early November when we present it at the Eco Global Summit. But the top barrier from our survey, and this is a global survey, preventing women from progressing into senior positions, was childcare and caring responsibilities. I don't think that will come as a surprise to anyone, because as we all know, the pandemic has meant that working from home has been the norm. There's been no childcare or very little childcare support. And so women have ended up taking on the bulk of the childcare and domestic responsibilities. And it's gone up from, gone up to 86% as that being the top barrier from 78% in 2020. And we obviously think this is a response to the COVID situation. The top initiatives for getting more women into the boardroom revolve around flexibility, senior female role models, and mentoring. And interestingly, the switch in 2020 was that more women saw as an initiative that is very important, they still do, was having role models to look up to encourage and support career progression. Whereas prior to that, excuse me, flexibility was a key issue. And that was clearly changed when COVID meant that flexible working and working from home became the norm rather than something that many women strived for. However, this year, flexible working is still an issue in terms of how that works, has gone up slightly to 67% as being an initiative that's very important from 63% the previous year. Mentoring has also shown an increase in terms of that's something that more women are asking for. And that's increased from 55% in 2020 to 62% this year. And also the focus on senior role models is also seen as an initiative that we need to address. And that's a little bit chicken and egg. We need to encourage more women to stay in our profession and take on those roles so that we can have more role models to help the next generation coming through. I think that COVID has played a part, but I get the sense that there's, and that's from talking to all our groups and talking to people in senior roles in the industry, that there's a lot more focus now on creating change. And we can see the barriers, we can understand that we need to shift the dial, and we need to look for solutions. And I know that Nicky and Alice and Anna will also talk about some of those perhaps solutions that can come into play. But we've got an opportunity to create some change. When we started Global Women in PR, there were very few diversity and inclusion divisions within the global agencies that perhaps played lip service to the fact that change was necessary. But now there is a really big push to understand how change can be made, what needs to be done, and how perhaps they can change their recruitment policies, how they can look at flexibility, particularly now that we're going back into a different situation where it's not completely back into the office and it's not completely working from home. And we have to adopt to a new hybrid situation. And that, I think, will have a positive impact. I think we're at a stage where we've got a bit of a blank sheet of paper where we can start writing some new rules to enable more women to consider staying in their careers, taking on more senior roles and driving change forward. And I think there's a huge willingness in our industry to do that. What we don't want to be doing is coming up in year 4 of our annual index and saying the situation has shifted a marginal amount. I think if we don't take the opportunity now to make change, we're losing a valuable opportunity to really, really make a difference when we've got there is a change in the environment led by the changes imposed on us as a result of the pandemic. And I hope that kind of provides some context to the work that we've been doing and some of the things that we've been investigating to ensure that we can encourage the next generation of women to be leaders, that for them, it really is what they can aspire to and expect to do, rather than it being the exception to the rule.
Thank you, Sue. Yeah, some really interesting top lines there, hot off the press, given that the survey isn't going to be published officially until November. So thank you for sharing those. And it is just, I suppose it's great when you are sat there in your own situation, and particularly Women in PR, Cymru joining as an affiliate of Global Women in PR and sat around that board table. And particularly, like you've just mentioned, that survey is an annual global survey that you do know that you're not alone in this, and they are things that are happening throughout the world, and we're all coming together to try and break these barriers down. So thank you for sharing that, Sue. I'm going to hand over to Alice now. Alice, Sue obviously mentioned that important bit about balance and how it is good for business, and how we need to be changing that landscape. And it'd be great to hear from you on your perspective on that and the things that you're seeing from that business side.
Great. Well, thank you very much. And firstly, thank you to commsHERO for inviting me along, and also to Sue and Global Women in PR. The work that they do and continue to do is just so important for the industry and for women in their careers. My background's in headhunting, so I've been working in talent now for over 20 years in the communications and marketing sector. So I founded Hanson Search. We are a global headhunting business in the communication sector. So we recruit for agencies and in-house teams. And then I founded a business called The Work Crowd, which is an online platform. And we connect businesses directly with freelancers in the communication and marketing sectors as well. So my conversations are all around this sector, about helping individuals progress in their careers, whether that's on the permanent side or the freelance side, and talking to businesses about how to attract talent and retain talent. And post-pandemic, I mean, we're experiencing a huge shift at the moment, both individuals looking to move, in-house teams, agencies looking to hire. So there is a real challenge out there for businesses to get the right talent on board, but also could be a great opportunity for women as well. So from my perspective, firstly, conversations have shifted. I think, like Sue said, these conversations weren't happening 20 years ago, and there is a real desire amongst the industry to make change, and change has happened. There are some great businesses, and I work with some fantastic companies that are really supportive about women in the industry, and they've been doing that pre-COVID and continue to do that, and have been really good with their staff during those difficult times of last year and early this year. And there are more women coming through to the top. So, there are lots of great positive things happening. I think being able to put a spotlight on what is good, and hopefully making that come about change, and it's always disappointing to see when the end result isn't the change that we would hope. And, you know, one day I hope we don't have to have these conversations and there is true diversity across the industry. I mean, from a recruitment perspective, the things that I see that are happening that are important, businesses are engaging with us as headhunters around diversity. So we have regular conversations. In fact, over the past 2 months, we've done 3 surveys with our clients who've been asked to get involved in assessing what the business is like externally and internally. So things are happening. There is more role modeling, there are more mentorship schemes, more sort of marketing pushing out and creating an environment where it's positive for women. And so I think from a recruitment perspective, obviously the pipeline, the funneling, we're getting a lot of women coming into it, but why are we losing them at the end, at the senior end? So something is going wrong with retention. And I do think that is an area that businesses really need to sort of focus on. And all the things that Sue's been talking about from the report perspective actually is what we also do see in the working world and speaking to candidates and clients. I mean, it's been well documented, the challenges that mothers faced and the extra burden of childcare and schooling of last year. And we have seen women having burnout who've said, actually, do you know what? I've just had enough and I'm going to change industries altogether. We can't afford that to let that happen. We actually conducted a survey and it found that 35% of individuals have suffered from mental health during COVID. Of which 65% were women. So the lion's share is the women, and it's probably to do with having to take on this burden of schooling and childcare. 20% were considering freelancing, and certainly we've seen that from the work crowd. We've experienced a real boom in terms of the number of individuals signing up to freelance. And the worrying side, 30% of the industry are considering moving. So, you know, businesses do need to get this right if they want to find good talent. And similar to what Sue was talking about, flexibility, company culture is the fundamental thing. And I think it's not just flexibility of, oh, you can work from home a couple of days a week. It's flexibility just around thinking, around culture. And that comes both ways. It requires businesses to be flexible and individuals to be flexible back. The childcare, I was a single working mum for most of my career. I've launched 2 businesses. If I didn't have fantastic au pairs, I don't know what I would have done. And I do know Brexit and COVID have impacted on childcare for parents. So, you know, really interesting what Sue said there in terms of childcare being the number one. And I can see that happening. We have a shortage of talent in the UK. Not just in communications, across all sectors. And again, that's well documented in the media. So if we can get more childcare to support women into the country, I think that would be great. But, you know, it's not just about women taking it all on. It's about equality in the workplace and equality at home. And women just can't keep stacking their load higher and higher. Otherwise, there will be these mental health issues and it'll be really, really hard to juggle both. So, you know, there are some great businesses who really are making changes. There is great companies offering really good flexibility, and the markets are booming from a hiring perspective. So if you're in the wrong business, now is the time to also make a move, because there's plenty companies who can help and support and are desperate for good talent.
Thank you, Alice. And we'll get into some of that in a moment. But yes, some really interesting industry, an industry perspective there on what is happening with businesses and particularly that talent and the reasons why that talent is shifting. But you mentioned around businesses getting it right. And Nicky, coming to you next. We're obviously, you talk so many of these events around your business model, the way that you work. Obviously, I mentioned that you're the co-founder of the PR network, and you really, really fly that flag for flexible working. So yeah, if you could just talk us through that and your background, that'd be really helpful.
Sure, thanks, Laurian. Yeah, great to be here today. As you say, this is a topic that my business partner George and I are hugely passionate about. You also mentioned at the start that we'd been part of the UK Women in PR committee for quite a few years, and while we were there, we ran the mentoring scheme with PR Week, which was fantastic. And yeah, I mean, I'm here, I guess, because of my day job. So for those of you who don't know what the PR Network is and does, we are a virtual PR agency. George and I set it up 16 years ago this week. We've just turned sweet 16, which we can scarcely believe. And really the sort of motivation for us to set up as virtual, and what I mean by that is that we don't have an office, never had an office. And also our workforce is predominantly working independently for themselves in a flexible way all around the world. So we do have 8 permanent members of staff, but everybody else is independent. And really the reason for that was that George and I both worked in various big London agencies for the majority of our careers. Really enjoyed that, worked on some great brands, loved the kind of the pace of life at that time, but both had our eye on having children, and we're quite concerned about the opportunity to juggle, or rather how difficult it could potentially be to juggle a big job as we moved up the agency ladders respectively, and also have children. I had many friends that had reached board level within agencies and were, from my perspective, having quite a difficult time running back and forth between nursery, clients, back to the office, and then turning on their laptops at home. And I actually didn't have kids at that point, and I thought, that doesn't look great. Surely there must be a better way. So this was sort of whirring around in my head. So I actually jumped off that ladder and I decided to go freelance and see whether I could build a client base for myself before having children, see if I liked it or not. And at the same time, George had just actually had her first baby. She was a director in a PR agency at the time on maternity leave. We were good friends and we'd worked together in the past as well. And for about 6 months, I was freelancing and I became very busy. And while I was going around and about meeting clients, going into agencies, helping them with their teams, I was also meeting other freelancers like me that had decided that actually the traditional opportunities offered to them in-house or in agency life just weren't going to work with their kind of work-life balance and what they wanted, predominantly from a family point of view. Now, these weren't only women, but there were some guys as well that also wanted more flexibility. But certainly this was something that was very much coming across to me, that there were lots of people out there, almost another kind of level in the market, if you like, that wanted to work flexibly, but just didn't think they would get that in an employed situation. So George and I, at some point back in 2005, we think it was in a bar, we came up with this idea of actually striking out on our own. Laurian's heard this story so many times at these events. We thought we'll set up a new type of agency. We'll go into business together and we will staff that agency with senior freelance consultants that have decided to work for themselves in a flexible way. We won't have an office. We don't want to travel in and out of an office. We don't want that commute. As I said, George had a baby. I actually didn't at that point, but we thought we don't need one. And actually, if we don't have an office, then we're not confining ourselves from a sort of talent point of view to people who are able to commute into a workplace every day. Now, this was obviously quite novel at the time, as I say, 16 years ago. So we tested the idea on a few kind of clients and potential clients and people we trusted, and everybody thought that's a great idea. So we went ahead, set up the business. And as I say, it was very much predicated on flexibility and agility. So the whole point was we would find people to fill our account teams based on their certain level of seniority. So we actually only work with experienced people who worked across a range of disciplines and sectors. And then in time, actually, we've expanded it geographically now. So we worked in 40 countries last year. And we would then take in client briefs and we would build the team around the clients, but allowing the people who are working for us to dictate their hours, their place of work, because they're working from home, and just make sure that they weren't taking on too much and that their client portfolios had been chosen by them so that they're happy with the amount of work that they have. We don't know who's working where and in what hours and whether they're stopping and starting again and working at night. We don't care about that. It doesn't matter to us as long as they're happy. It's all about being able to deliver for the clients while having a work-life balance that works for you. So that was the idea for our business. It's obviously still going today. we love it. We've now got 8 people who've worked with us on a permanent basis, and 2 guys, I should say as well, 2 full-time guys who've been with us both of them over 10 years. They also have complete flexibility. They pick up their kids, they go take to swimming lessons, then they work again in the evening. You know, we have to work across all time zones because our clients are in all continents, and it just really works well. So that all sounds great, but what I find concerning when I listen to Sue, giving us the top line results that have just come out from this recent opinion research, is that 16 years later, the drivers for Georgia and I leaping out of the agency world and setting up on our own because we couldn't find another way to do it are still a problem today. Laurian and I chaired a panel at the National PRCA conference 2 years ago, which was called Let's Talk About Flex, and it was all the same concerns. So I think it's got to be hoped that the experience of COVID, where the case has been made, the business case has been made for people to be able to do good work flexibly from home or in a hybrid model, if that's where things are going forward. I really think this pressure to come into the office every day, 9 to 5, is just going to be not applied, or if it is applied to people, I think that, and as Alice was saying, I think flexibility is going to be demanded of employees going forward anyway. I think people will find it very hard to fill roles, and as we know, it's a very busy market at the moment for clients. So I just sort of hope that will also put a pressure on employers who perhaps have been averse to offering flexible working to try it and to see what works, and also to look at, for example, job shares and other ways of making it work so that people can come together. As long as the client has people working across their account at any one time, every day of the week, they really don't mind how the configuration works. There's a bit of an objection to job shares. I don't know, Alice, from a recruitment point of view, you may find this, that we've worked in a job share, George and I, since we set up the business. I now do have children as well. We've got 5 between us, and so we've worked in all different ways and patterns over the 16 years, but it certainly is possible to share a role and make it work well. So clients really don't mind. Clients don't like it if they're told that there isn't anybody available on a Friday because their account director doesn't work on a Friday. That's what irritates a client. If they're told that they're going to speak to somebody else because that person isn't available, but that person also is senior and has their back and knows what's going on, then they're happy. So I guess I would just say flexibility is absolutely possible and achievable. I've been working flexibly. I've not worked 9 to 5, sat at a desk in the same place for 16 years. I think there are companies out there offering it, and if you're not getting it, you can go and find it. You don't have to go freelance to do that. There are lots of opportunities within progressive companies to work in the way that you want. And then the last thing I would say would just to go back to what I mentioned at the start regarding the mentoring scheme. Obviously, I was involved with the UK scheme, but there are many fantastic similar opportunities run globally, which Global Women in PR, I know, will be supporting and promoting. And so just look out for those and find people who can help you build your life and your work life so that it works with home, and set it up in the way that you want, because that, you only have one life.
Thanks, Nicky. And that's leading us nicely into hearing from our next panel speaker. Nicky, you mentioned about the mentoring and the support and that global aspect as well. You mentioned Global Women in PR for the first time had, on International Women's Day, a global international speed mentoring, which was fantastic, and we were all placed with different women from around the world, and able to support each other, and now I'm really delighted in that sense to hand over to Anna Maria, who is the president for Global Women in PR in Romania. And Anna Maria, we had a conversation this morning and talking about how it is quite different for your industry in Romania, and it'd be great to hear about that and why you did set up your network in Romania.
Hi, everybody. I hope I can speak clearly. The internet is working. Hi again. Thank you for the invitation. I'm head of Global Women in PR Romania. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a mother of 2. I'm a teacher. I'm a wife. I'm a volunteer for fake news. So I think this is the reality of today. Women doing a lot of stuff in the same hour, trying to fill in different roles. I think this is the reality of today, and I think we can do it. So there is no doubt about it that we can do it. You mentioned that in Romania, actually, we have the exception that confirms the rule that Sue talked about. In Romania, we are around 90% women, 90% women leading big PR agencies and leading PR departments in big international companies. So actually, I think here the problem is that we don't have men, and we need men. We need to balance everything. And I think the fight here is to try to get as many young men into the industry. And the discussion and the debate when we started Global Women in PR in Romania was, do we have a reputation problem? So do we have a reputation problem and men don't sign in the industry? Or we have a reputation problem because we are too many women in the industry, because Romania is, let's say, a country where women not necessarily play the main role in the family. And it was a big debate. I think we should do a study or a survey to better understand why we are in this situation. But during our career as a PR profession, and all the women in the association, they don't feel the pressure of not being heard. On the other side, if we are looking at the creative industry as a whole, and we look at marketing, for example, advertising, then we have a lot of men there. So in the communication industry, they say that women talk better, faster, and are better in convincing other people. So they let PR to women. And the advertising and marketing industry somehow fits the global view, the global structure that men are majority. So what we have done after the launch of the Global Women in PR, we tried to work with the younger generation. So for the next professional to understand the industry and to fix the balance. We go into the universities and we have a lot of program there. And when we are having different campaigns like competitions for students where our member played the role of mentor, you see that all the young men are recruited after the project. So all the young students entering the competition that we do are recruited by the agencies or companies because there is a need of balance. I was once asked about the fact that I'm a woman and I'm working in crisis communication mostly. This is what I do, consultancy in crisis communication. If I felt any issues there, because it's high profile consultancy. And I said that only once I met a client and we shook hands, and he only said, "Oh, you are a woman. Yes, do you want to talk further?" Yes. Okay, but this was the first reaction, and this only happened once. And I think it's not the rule in Romania. But most certainly we will look into the industry and see if there is any issue with the reputation. Talking about flexibility, I resonated with what Nicky said regarding the fact that now we have the opportunity to actually build a team which is built on flexibility. And what I did last year, I recruited 2 people outside Bucharest. We are based in Bucharest, and all agencies and big companies are in Bucharest, recruiting from the same pool of people. And we tried to open a new door and recruit outside Romania, and we recruited from other cities far away from Bucharest. And we are working very well together. We found very good professionals outside the capital. But sometimes we hide that we have team in Cluj, because clients say, okay, if they are in Cluj, they are not so close. But we do our status on Zoom. We do our meetings on Teams. Why are they so afraid to see on their CV a team which is not working in their city? And although I think there is an opportunity, and I think we can look at this as an opportunity to develop and to grow and to find talent all over this world, why are we still anchored in what happened before? Why are we still afraid of having a team which is not near us in the next room? but delivering the same results. And one lady in our global women in PR called me a couple of months ago. She knew that I was recruiting and I was trying this approach. And she says, I found a lady. She's not willing to come to the office because she's not vaccinated. Do you want to see her? And I said, yes. If you recommend her, and the only reason that you don't recruit her is that she doesn't come to the office, yes, I want to see her. So it's still at the beginning, but I think we are getting there. And also one other thing that we talk about in Global Women in PR is to be flexible also about our work, to not make it local necessary, and to look at everything that this health crisis has given us as an opportunity.
Thank you, Anna Maria. And it's just so interesting to hear the different perspective, but clearly, a theme coming through here is about that balance, whether it is from here in the UK, where we need to, have a look at women in those senior roles, or for yourself in Romania, that we need to be having, you need to be having a look at that balance tipping the other way, that you need to get men into the industry. So this is why it is so fantastic with the Global Women in PR Network, because when we do come together as a board to hear all of these different perspectives, it just make you think about different things, sharing that learning. So yeah, it was really, really helpful to hear that perspective from you. And just picking up on that point around balance, I know Nicky, you mentioned the panel that we were on about flexible working. So just to go back to that point, and I know that you are very strong about this, about making sure that it isn't just a woman's problem or prerogative to make sure that we have that balance, but indeed that we are making sure that men are able to ask for flexible working, or feel comfortable to be able to ask their employers for that parental leave, and that the policies in place in organisations are not just a talking shop. But if we can just pick up on some of that, and just how important it is to make sure that we are having that balance with the equality there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously, the need for flexibility, and the fact that women leave the PR industry at senior levels because they can't make it work, that's not all just a women's problem, is it? That's an industry problem. That's a problem for men who are working with women in their teams, whether they're women who are their bosses or they're hiring women, or, this is an industry-wide issue. And I think it's, there are so many different parts to it, from making sure that men feel comfortable in the workplace to ask for flexible working, to feel that they can go and see their children in plays or sports days, or leave early, or pick, they have the same right to ask for those things as women do. And certainly, I mentioned earlier, in our own business, we treat the senior men in the company the same as the women, as we should, and vice versa. And I think also the other part to consider in terms of balance, and when as you do start to progress through your career and obviously take on more responsibilities, particularly if you end up working on the board, is that you need to think about what's happening at home, and try and make sure that you have balance at home, and just be really realistic about how much you can realistically take on, and just remember that there are only a certain amount of hours in the day. We all like to try and be superwoman, and just outsource as much of your tasks as you can, whether that's at home, to make sure that you have some help at home from your partner. Obviously, you should be sharing everything, but if you're both out at work, in an office, get some help with the cleaning, and then also at work, if there are aspects, I'm talking now really for people who work for themselves, but from my own experience running a business, there are parts of the business that only I can do and George can do, going out finding new business opportunities, working with clients at a senior level. But there are lots of things that we don't need to do, admin, to start with. We were doing our own accounts, well, that didn't make sense. So just try and achieve balance. Don't take on too much, just remember that you can't do it all.
Definitely not. And I know we were talking about this in our pre-panel discussion the other day. But Sue, just to pick up on some of that as well, from that global perspective, you shared some really helpful insight into some other countries where they are changing their practice around, part-time working hours, for example. It would be great to hear about some of those in some other countries as well.
Well, interestingly, yes, we had one of our speaking events. We had what's called Inside Stories, and Tracy Dickerson, who had been working with Zurich Insurance, gave a fantastic case study on how Zurich were concerned that they were losing women at a senior level, and they weren't quite sure how they could change things. So they actually went out of their way to look at their recruitment processes, because it's not just about saying there's an issue, it's about how do we find solutions. And one of their ways was to trial advertising every job as a part-time job. And they also used AI as a way of filtering responses to their recruitment. So it was gender neutral in the terms of how they were looking for filling those roles. And much to their surprise was that more women started to apply for these roles, because inbuilt into that offering was greater flexibility and the ability to fit in all the other things Nicky's been talking about. When we look at caring responsibilities, and in our surveys, that's come up every single time as being a major barrier to thinking about, oh my gosh, I can't do it all. So part-time drove that, and their stats at the end of a year showed a complete shift to having far more women in senior roles. Productivity had increased. The whole stats around that exercise had improved performance. As I said, it's a business argument as much as it is a personal situation of having a good, well-supported workforce. HP, interestingly, we had an event in Cannes, at Cannes Lions, where as we all know, the communications industry come together, the marketing professionals, and we had head of HP talking about their approach to agencies. And at the time, and I'm sure they're still doing it, they would only take on agencies to work for them who could demonstrate change in gender and equality and improving diversity. And that was a benchmark they used to measure the performance of the agency. So if the agency they were using didn't demonstrate change or didn't show that the dial had been shifted, they lost the contract. Well, I know that's carrot and stick, but it worked, and it started to work. And I know of other companies who are doing similar things. So there are a number of things that can be done. It is about making sure, as in Sweden, that parental leave is the norm for men. It isn't in many other European countries. Men just don't take it. They know they can have it, but they just don't do it. And it's about perhaps looking at policies, HR policies, that can help in changing the situation and make it easier for both men and women to get the most out of working. And we have an opportunity to do that now. I think that we are at a stage, the pandemic was horrific, but it's given us a chance to reflect and reimagine how we work going forward. And interestingly, a lot of agencies are putting their hands up and saying, yes, we need to make change. And big companies, obviously, in-house making change.
Thanks, Sue. And Anna Maria, just to pick up on that point that Sue was just saying there around, and Nicky as well, around, people, men in particular, not feeling comfortable to take up on those opportunities, and it's not, available in every country for them to be able to do that. It'd be really interesting just to hear from that childcare perspective of how the land lies in Romania from that point.
It's very interesting. I think we are an island. So PR industry in Romania is an island of strong women with a strong man accepting their role in the family. I was thinking about the board of our Global Women in PR. So we are 4 ladies. One of our board members has 6 kids. And she was in 2020 or the beginning of this year promoted. working a lot until 11 o'clock in the evening. And her husband has no problem in cooking and taking care of the children. So I think it really depends on the way men look at the family. Because if I'm looking around us in the PR industry, there are a lot of women with kids, but not complaining about the difficulty of raising a family, but more about the difficulty of staying sane, or let's say staying with a healthy mind and spirit. We are looking now around, and the majority of us meditate, do yoga since last year. We are trying to find our balance. It's not finding help, because I think this we all have. Families in Romania are very important, and if you don't have an au pair, you have two grandparents or a nun or whoever who can help. So the only thing is that although you have help, there is a lot of stress and a lot of pressure on every professional in Romania. And now everybody is looking around to see what tools they can use to stay sane. For example, I downloaded at the beginning of this year Brain FM. I don't know if you heard about this. It's a radio that offers you music that can relax you, and it offers you a program that fits your daily routine. So I think we all have to find resources, and we have meetings in Global Women in PR talking about where we can find these resources, because we know that we have the family beside us, but we need additional resources and additional help. And we work a lot around this. We do meditation, we have a yoga session online, but it works.
Thank you, Anna Maria. And I'm just really conscious of the time. I think we've come to the end of our time slot. I really would love to, obviously I would say this, would love to sit and talk about this a lot more. And obviously the balance theme is a key one coming through those results that we've heard from Sue, Alice, Nicky and Anna Maria. Thank you so much for your time and perspective. And I'd love to talk more about how we invest in ourselves. Alice, I know we were talking about that a lot in our pre-panel discussion, but we've just heard some things from Anna Maria there of making sure that we are looking after ourselves, that we are making sure that it is an equal balance, and that we are making sure that men are part of this journey with us. But thank you so much. It's been great to be part of commsHERO Week. Thank you to the panelists again, and thank you again to commsHERO Week. It's been great to be part of it.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Hiya, back. Thank you very much, ladies. That was really, really good. Really enjoyed listening to what everyone had to say there. So thank you to all of you for being jumping on and speaking for us. Just one last thing to say, everyone watching, I know you're sick of it, but there's lots of stuff to win. So if you want to win some goodies, please post your photos on social media using the hashtag commsHERO, and you know everything that's up for grabs for winning by now. You've heard it. God knows how many times this week. So, but yeah, thank you again. Our next session will be with Fit with Frank, doing a bit of yoga. So Anna, I know you were talking about yoga, so maybe you should be able to give this a go as well. It might give you some inspiration for some of your sessions. Okay, thank you everyone. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.